I have been playing Woodwind Waves ever since the game's launch, and Sanhua was the first support character that I ever invested in because I am a huge Legang main. The funny thing is that it was only a few days ago that I realized that I've been playing her entirely wrong all this time because I had to test her extensively for a character breakdown. If you look at her kit description, her second inherent passive gives her a 20% increase in damage of her forte after using her 5th basic attack, and her S1 gives her free 15% crit rate after using her 5th basic attack. If you want to maximize her damage output, which you definitely should because she's insane, then you need to figure out a way to at least use her 5th basic attack once in your rotation before she uses her liberation and skill. If you're interested in unlocking her true damage potential, then you're in luck, because in this video I'm going to show you exactly how to use her effectively from what I've gathered so far after spending an unhealthy amount of time testing her in every possible way to help you clear content much faster and have a good time while doing it, because that's what actually matters in the game. As I always say in my character breakdown videos, this will not be a generic guide where I read character descriptions because you can do that yourself. What this video rather does is to save you time and effort that you would have put in to figure out hidden tips and tricks that you can implement in your gameplay to enjoy playing your favorite characters. In today's video, we're going to cover 5 main sections, including what is her actual role in your team building, how does she compare to other sub DPS characters, damage potential as a sub DPS versus main DPS, possible teams that you can build with Sanhua, well-optimized rotations, and lastly, best build for support and main DPS for high damage numbers. As always, if you find my videos helpful, enjoyable, or informative in any way, then please do me a huge favor by liking and subscribing to help support the channel. Sanhua is a character that is too good for a 4-star, and that's because of one particular thing about her kit. She's fast. If you take a look at the numbers for her concerto energy regeneration, her forte generates a total of 45 concerto energy, which is insane because it's the second highest that I've seen in the game so far, while the first place goes to Donjin, who can regenerate 50 concerto energy with her forte because she's also just broken as well. Her resonance skill generates 15 concerto energy, intro skill generates 10 concerto energy, and her liberation generates 20 concerto energy, all adding up to a total of 90 concerto energy. I'll show you how you can easily get the 10 remaining concerto energy without doing dodge counters at the rotation section of this video. If you're not familiar with how concerto energy works, you basically need 100 to activate another character's intro skill and the active character's outro skill. If you wish to know more about it, check out my advanced combat guide later on the channel for detailed tips and tricks on concerto energy. Being able to regenerate 90 concerto energy, excluding the concerto energy that you can get from dodge counters and basic attacks, makes Sanhua one of the fastest characters that we have in the game, which makes running her as a sub DPS in your team the most recommended thing to do, but main DPS Sanhua also slaps really hard. She's also very easy to build, whether as a sub DPS or main DPS, because her sequence node 1 gives you free 15% crit rate after her 5th basic attack, which I'll show you how to easily implement it in your gameplay during the rotation section of this video. It's a common practice to run a crit rate forecast echo for sub DPS characters because they will most likely be running a 4-star weapon like the Endless Collapse, which has an attack percentage substat instead of crit rate or crit damage. If you manage to get a little bit of crit rate substats on your echoes, you can easily run a crit damage forecast main stat on Sanhua because of her sequence node 1. Her S5 also grants her 100% crit damage specifically for the damage dealt by detonating the ice creations created by her skill, Liberation, and her intro skill. This also helps reduce the amount of resources that you put into tuning your echoes to obtain crit damage substats on every piece. Sanhua also has an energy cost of 100, so you don't need to put an energy region 3 cost echo main stat on her because you'll just be wasting her true damage potential, and you can easily get her liberation up and running every time if you do your rotations properly. If you have her S4, it makes it even better because using your liberation gives her 10 resonance energy. If you're also running a main DPS Sanhua with Sheji, you can also get free 15 energy from Sheji when you activate her outro skill. So basically what I'm trying to say is that resonance energy shouldn't be an issue, so don't bother using an energy region 3 cost echo whether you're running her as a sub DPS Sanhua or a main DPS Sanhua. But like every character in the game, Sanhua has a few cons or disadvantages as well. If you plan to run her as a main DPS, you will encounter some issues due to how her kit is designed. To be able to use her forte to do damage or recover concerto energy, Sanhua heavily relies on her skill, Liberation, and intro skill, which are the glacial or icy spikes things that she creates with her resonance skill, Liberation, and intro skill, which she can detonate with her special heavy attack if the bar lines up in the blue part of her forte bar. If you don't have access to your Liberation, resonance skill, or intro, your only choice is to use her basic attacks or the flashy heavy attacks from her forte to do damage as a main DPS. This is not the only issue with her kit though. Her ice creations are designed to be stationary, so if you're up against high moving targets like the Jurassic Dinosaur or Tempest Memphis, you can easily move out of her detonation range and you don't get to do any damage. However, you can still get the concerto energy after detonation even if it doesn't do any damage to the enemy. Another issue with her kit is that she's not a viable character to do quick swaps with because you can easily lose the benefit that her outro skill provides. From her character description, it states that if the character with the 38% basic attack buff leave the field, they will lose the buff even though your character technically does not leave the field when you do a quick swap. You can still use her for quick swaps though if you really enjoy it like I do, but it's not recommended because when she enters the field, there's not much that she can do aside from using her skill if it's off cooldown. Now let's test her damage potential as a sub DPS and as a main DPS. Her talent levels are 8 on the forte and 9 on the liberation. I'll be using Showkeeper and Jeji as her buffers for this showcase. Here's my build for the Moonlit set. Her crit stats are 59% on 239% with the Emerald of Genesis weapon. I'm running a crit damage 4 cost, glacial damage bonus 3 cost, and an attack 3 cost echo. The rest are the usual 1 cost attack main stats. I was able to hit 53,000 damage with her liberation and 74,000 damage with her forte, which is insane for a support build. Here's my build with the Freezing Frost set. Her crit stats are 62% on 236% with the Emerald of Genesis weapon. I'm running a crit damage 4 cost echo, glacial damage bonus 3 cost echo, and an attack 3 cost echo. The rest are the usual 1 cost attack main stats. I was able to hit 58,000 damage with her liberation and 80,000 damage with her forte, which is crazy because her talents are not even fully leveled yet. I've run out of materials because of so many character breakdowns lately, so be sure to leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. This shows that running her as a main DPS is viable, but you'll need to add another character who can consistently deal damage alongside Sanhua like Sheji because she won't have much to do once her liberation and skill are on cooldown and the scalings on her basic attacks are not that great, so you have no choice but to swap her off. Another thing you should keep in mind is that Sanhua's sequence node 6 grants a team-wide attack buff, so having a character like Sheji do damage alongside Sanhua will be very beneficial because she can also benefit from the attack buff that Sanhua provides. Now let's move on to her team options. For a sub DPS Sanhua, she works really well with Encore, Lingyang, and Havoc Rover. Havoc Rover and Encore has some pretty decent scalings on their basic attacks after Havoc Rover's Dark Surge state and Encore's Liberation state, so Sanhua is a very decent sub DPS for both of them. I don't have Encore on my account yet, so I cannot provide any DPS showcase at the moment. Sanhua is also one of the best support for Ling Yang because his kicks in his creative mode are considered as basic attack damage. Sanhua was also mostly used with Cucaracha at the game's launch, but after players figured out the dash cancelling trick after 2 basic attacks with Calculator, her synergy with him greatly reduced. Calcium also gets vulnerable during his Death Messenger animation, so doing quick swaps to escape the incoming danger will make him lose the 38% basic attack buff that Sanhua provides. Camellia is also right around the corner, and if her main damage source scales off basic attack damage, Sanhua will also be the perfect support for her. If you plan on playing Hypercarry Camellia, this is the perfect time to start building your Sanhua. If you want to play main DPS Sanhua instead, your sub DPS options are Jeji for her resonance skill damage buff, glacial damage buff, and resonance energy regeneration. Keep in mind that Sanhua's Ice Creations detonation with her special heavy attack are considered as resonance skill damage. Now let's take a look at her optimized rotations for a main DPS and a sub DPS Sanhua. As mentioned earlier, Sanhua gets 15% crit rate if you have her S1 and 20% forte damage buff when she uses her 5th basic attack for the crit rates and forte damage buff. Unlike other characters like Ling Yang and Verena that can start their basic attacks from the 3rd stage after a successful dodge counter, Sanhua always starts her basic attacks from the 2nd stage after a dodge counter. When you also land her intro skill and follow up with basic attacks, she will start her basic attack chain from the 3rd stage, making it easier and faster to land the 5th basic attack. If you've also leveled up your Sanhua's basic attacks and you want to squeeze out as much damage as possible, you can actually convert the 3rd basic attack into the normal short spinning heavy attack after her intro skill by simply holding down your basic attack button for a few seconds and then let go before she plunges on the ground, because the heavy attack has a bit higher scaling compared to the 3rd basic attack. However, if your combo is interrupted after the intro and you dodge, you will have to start your basic attack chain from the 2nd stage as mentioned earlier. From my testing, it's difficult to transition into a heavy attack by holding your basic attack button after a dodge with Sanhua. This is something that is very easy to do with characters like Havoc Rover, but for Sanhua, her 2nd basic attack always comes out before the heavy attack animation begins. But this is fine because it lets you skip the delay between the 2nd basic attack animation and the normal short spinning heavy attack animation. So if your intro skill basic attack combo is interrupted and you have to dodge, hold your basic attack button for about 1 second and then let go, which will look as if the 2nd basic attack and the normal short spinning attack are part of the same animation because of no delay, and then continue until you land the 5th basic attack for the crit rate and forte damage buff. When playing a sub DPS Sanhua, after the intro from your healer, simply spam your basic attack button or do the heavy attack version for extra damage after Sanhua plunges on the ground to follow up with her 4th and 5th basic attack, but swap to your main DPS to cancel the 5th basic attack animation and use their echo skill for example, and then swap back to Sanhua to use her skill, liberation, and then special heavy attack to detonate the Ice Creations. This ensures that you can easily get the 15% crit rate and the 20% forte damage buff to guarantee that her liberation, forte, and skill deals more damage and crits most of the time, which leads to faster clear times. The 4th basic attack and 5th basic attack also helps you get the 10 remaining concerto energy from the calculations that we did before. For a DPS Sanhua with Jeji as a sub DPS, here's how the rotation goes. You first have to use your healer's skill to gain the rejuvenating glow buff and then swap to Jeji to activate her liberation, complete her full basic attack sequence to get half of her forte, and then swap to Sanhua, hold your basic attack button to perform the sword spinning heavy attack animation to help you quickly transition to your 5th basic attack, and then use her liberation and skill. Detonate the Ice Creations with her special heavy attack when it lands in the blue area of her forte bar. Now you can intro with Shorekeeper, which helps her gain concerto energy. Use her liberation and do some basic attacks to fully fill her concerto energy. Then swap to Jeji, who will now have a full forte bar. Use her skill and then follow up with a basic attack. Press her skill to teleport once and then swap to Sanhua to use the Lumpy Lumen Echo skill. After the first 2 shockwaves of the Lumpy Lumen Echo skill, you can cancel the animation by simply swapping back to Jeji and then complete her teleportation attacks to fully fill her concerto energy. Use the Heron skill and then intro with Sanhua, and use either the basic attack spam version or the heavy attack sword spin version for extra damage when she plunges on the ground to transition into her 4th and 5th basic attack. Also keep in mind that the 5th basic attack doesn't have to hit the enemy to gain the forte and crit rate buff. Then use your liberation and skill. Hold your basic attack button as soon as the skill animation begins to detonate the ice creations with her special heavy attack when it lands in the blue area of her forte bar. Then swap back to your healer to continue the rotations all over again. My Jeji is fully built as a sub DPS to do damage, and I never run into energy issues, so don't worry too much about energy regen as long as you do your rotations properly. I hope this tips and tricks guide helped you out, and if it did, do me a huge favor by liking this video and subscribing to see more videos from me in the future. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
So please whatever.